There is nothing that feels as good as a golf ball struck right in the sweet spot of your golf club. You know, that flush ball that rockets out there, even though it's a little offline, it still feels great. Now, there's nothing that feels as bad as a badly struck ball. Whiffed, top, chunk, heel, the whole thing. Even though those shots are online, the miss it just feels desperate. I'm going to help you to fix those. Now, I've been teaching golf since 1996. Back in the Rinderpest, I think it was, for a lot of you youngsters. And when I see golfers who come to me for lessons, I ask them what's the issue, and they're like, well, I hit the ball in the toe, or I'm inconsistent, or I'm hitting shank shots. And people look at these things in isolation. They think it's a toe shot and something's causing the toe shot, or they think I'm topping the ball and something's causing me to top the ball. The reality is the fat, the thin, the heel, the toe, they all come out of the same family. There's a similar common denominator, and that is where this golf club lands in relation to the golf ball. Think about this, right? Your golf swing spends about 99% of its time in the air, and the 1% where it interacts with the ball in the ground is where the magic is made. So clearly then, we have to investigate the skill of landing this club in the right place in relation to the ground, and certainly in relation to the golf ball. That's what we're going to do today. Now, even though your golf swing starts in front of you, travels up and behind you, comes down in front of you, goes up and behind you, it's related to this, a swing. Imagine a playground swing. This is a pendulum, and notice how rhythmic the swing is and how pretty much it's landing in the same place because the fulcrum is somewhat stable. Now I can move the fulcrum a little bit and notice I'm still landing in the same place. But if I start to move this fulcrum around a whole lot, do you notice how the swing of the golf club is scuttled? And if you watched episode 1 of On the Mark, you would have noticed that fixing your slice was a function of controlling where the face is pointing. Now every shot you hit, whether it's with a driver or whether it's a chip shot or a bunker shot, is a function of where the face points, where the swing goes towards, and where the club lands in relation to the golf ball. The fancy golf term is angle of attack. At what angle is the club approaching the ground and where does it land? So if you begin to understand the fulcrum swing relationship, you already on your way to landing the club more consistently, even though there is some skill required to land the club on uneven lies consistently, powerfully, and repetitively. But don't worry, I got you. So I'm a pretty symmetrical guy. I wouldn't call me Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, but I'm well put together, and so are you. So here's something to understand as it relates to landing your club consistently in relation to the ball. I'm going to illustrate 2 areas in your body. First off, kind of your center of mass, right around your belly button, just above your pelvis, so there. So that line, the golf club is hanging straight to the ground. Now I'm going to show you a line in the middle of my chest. And notice how if I'm standing upright, those 2 lines pretty much intersect. Now if my hips shoot toward the target and my upper body hangs back, see the separation there? Now I need you to begin to understand that this line here is the one that has the biggest influence on where the fulcrum that is your golf swing lands. So if you're landing before the ball and chunking it, this is likely you. If you're not hitting the ground and swinging upwards and topping it, this is likely you. If you're someone who's chopping into the ground too much and acting like a backhoe, this is likely you. Can you see how that swing would be excessively downward? So the whole thing in golf when you set up is to understand that we set up in a place where your lower body is slightly in front of your upper body like that. Then when I wind up, I want to return almost to that situation. If something changes, there's every likelihood I'm going to land my club in the incorrect spot unless I make some last-ditch effort with my hands and my arms to somehow get the club back to the ball. So because we stand to the side of the ball, I just want to show you this perspective. You see where my center of mass is somewhere inside of my feet, and my upper body is somewhere over where the golf ball would be. I see too many golfers who get down to the ground that go like this. They bend more with their knees and they sit vertically with their spine. You watch any good golfer and there'll always be a situation where the pressure of the feet is right across the balls of the feet. They're athletic, and you see where my center of mass is. But you see how my upper body is over the ball. Now, if you've been one of those guys that has been told that you stand up too quickly, or whether you lift your head or something to that effect, it's not like you lifting your head. It's just like this relationship here is being scuttled, either before the swing, during the swing, whenever the case might be. But we've got to understand that golf is played on an incline, and understanding how to move on this incline is paramount to your ball striking success. I've not gone all Mr. Miyagi on you, but I want you to understand the dynamics of what causes this little drum to work, because it's just two vellums with beads dangling on the side of it. But if it's moved correctly, you see I can get those beads to hit the middle of the vellum every single time. Now your golf swing, remember the Fulcrum, works very much like that. So check it out. Here's how physics works if you didn't pay attention in physics class. There was this dude called Isaac Newton who came up with various theories. Now here's a big theory in golf, what I'm showing you here. You notice as I'm getting this ball to swing around me here, and it's on an inclined arc, just like your golf swing would be. Man, wouldn't it be cool if your swing was on plane like this? But what you got to learn is that when I'm swinging this around, when the ball swings back, I'm actually pulling this way. And when the ball swings through, I'm pulling in the opposite direction. That's what transmits force and power. So as the ball swings in this direction, I'm pulling away from that, and then I switch direction. And in so doing, I get this energetic swing around me. It's a tight movement. There's not a lot of bustling around the show. It's tight. It's like I'm cracking a whip. That's how these guys on the PGA Tour make power. But if you understand that, then you're going to be well on your way to landing the club in a lot better, lot more consistent area. First off, let's pay attention to your club and golf ball interaction. A lot of folks think of hitting the ball, but in reality, if you pay attention to where the sweet spot is, which is about there, notice how there's a little bit of club visible underneath the golf ball. So in effect, on the way down, we're striking slightly beneath the ball, and the loft of the club elevates the shot. Too many people are thinking of hitting the golf ball. I want you to think instead of landing the club in the proper place. You're not hitting a ball, you're landing the club properly in relation to the golf ball to present that sweet spot to the ball as often as you can. So referencing where the ball would interact with the sweet spot of the club, I'm going to take a tee now and just show you how much underneath the golf ball we're trying to strike. So basically up to that bottom groove. So using that tee now, we're going to develop the skill of landing properly in relation to the tee, which will help you with striking any shot off any lie more consistently. Now to that tee and to the landing of the golf club, I've given countless lessons where it's almost seemed like the golfer is petrified of hitting the ground, because once they've landed before the golf ball and then they're like, don't hit the ground, don't hit the ground. The reality is you need to hit the ground. And if you look down at this track of divots here, this was 6 or 7 shots. Notice a good divot's about the width of the club face. It's about as deep as my finger. It's about the length of a dollar bill. And referencing the tee now, which is a great exercise, if I had to stick that in the ground, notice how the tee just covers up the bottom groove, because that is going to be the first exercise we are going to do. So I've now got my tee in the ground. It's stuck in the ground, so it would cover up just the bottom groove. And we're going to go through a progression of adding movement and speed to the swing, realizing, of course, like when you're learning to drive a car, when it gets too fast and you can't land consistency, you gear back and you continue to practice in that vein. So the first way to do this is to grab any sort of a medium iron. I like to use wooden tees because the paint will oftentimes leave a mark over the bottom of your club face, so you can see exactly where you struck it as well. So with feet together, this is an age-old drill, and I've done this with major champions when their ball striking is off as well. So feet together, decent posture where you bend from your hips and not just your knees, bend over your hips, a little knee action. The tee will be in the middle of my feet, and all I'm going to do now is make a little halfway back, halfway through swing with the goal of striking the tee. You may miss it once or twice, that's okay. We just want to land the club where the tee is. It should look something like this. I get my posture comfy, I zone in on that tee. It's emblematic of my golf ball, and if you can hit this thing correctly, promise you the golf ball is going to go well in the air. So focus on the tee, back, through, and if you see down there, I just knocked over the tee with about a dollar bill sized divot. Can't see the mark on the bottom, but I see the tee right in the middle of my divot. So I'm like, okay, with that halfway back, halfway through action, I'm landing in the right place. So I'm on my way. So now the progression is growing. We were sort of halfway back, halfway through in the last one. Now we're going to widen the stance just a whisker, about a club head between us here. So nothing full size yet. We're still working around that stable fulcrum that you saw when I illustrated right at the beginning. Still tee in the same place, still bending from the hips and then the knees, not the other way around. Allowing our arms to feel somewhat relaxed underneath. Now the swing is going, I'd say 3/4 to 3/4, and you can make a fullish feeling follow through, but no losing balance, please. Again, this is about the skill of landing your golf club. So there, I clipped the tee, but I did not strike the ground. So if that was a golf shot, it would have been functional, maybe a groove low, but still, like I said, if you can get that tee struck, then you're going to be on your way to not hitting those crazy mishit balls. So the first two elements in the progression were feet together, small swing, halfway back, halfway through. Then we grew it, feet slightly wider, club head between them, 3/4-ish swing, and you could move through, but you would have felt almost a hitch or maybe a blockage in movement, and that's because there's not the leg action moving underneath you. So this is where we add the leg action and the impetus from the ground to the entire movement. It's simple. You start with your feet together, and as you swing back, you take a step toward the target. That's your load. And when you step, feel some pressure on that forward leg. So I load that forward leg, then I push and swing through to a balanced follow through. As I do this, I should still strike my tee. So when I start now, the tee wouldn't be in the middle of my feet. It would be in front of me, because remember, I'm going to step into it. So I get the tee, left of my lead foot a little bit. Now again, I load the leg with a step. Notice I'm stepping as I swing back, and then from there, I swing through and deliver into my full follow through. All the while, trying to strike the tee with the leading edge of my golf club. Again, skill development here. So situate the tee. I'm getting ready to load and step and swing. Oh, that was pretty nice there. Right in the middle of my tee. Nice square divot, felt my movement through, and there I could feel my body being the impetus for the swinging of the club around me. Very much like that fulcrum I showed you right at the top of the video. Now I know what you're saying, Mark, you're hitting a tee, and now you're about to hit a golf ball off a tee. That's not what we see on the golf course. I agree, but I will say to you this, major champion like Jason Day, when he's working on his golf swing, he's always off a low tee. I've seen Gil Morgan, legendary Champions Tour player, have a line of balls in front of him on a tee he'd just step into, try and strike the tee, and you would almost see a line of divots that were right in front of the tee every single time. So if the elites do it, there's no reason why you shouldn't. And I will concede if the ball's down in a divot or something like that, that's a different element. But all we're doing right now, folks, is we are learning the skill of landing the club in the correct area in relation to ourselves and, of course, the ground. That's what we're doing. So back to the business at hand. Now there's a ball that's on the top of the tee there. Same drill. I'm going to obviously attempt to hit the tee, and the ball will happen to be part of the collision. Same deal. Now I take my regular stance because I got the feeling of how I've loaded that leg and swung through to balance. Now I'm going to apply everything that I've been drilling over the last three progressions. Ball in the right place, posture bent from my hips, off we go. That was not what was planned. Hit the ground before the ball, so it's back to the drawing board. Clean the mud off myself. It's take two now because everybody misses, but that doesn't mean you're going to get knocked over, right? You're going to still stay true to what the skill building exercise is, and that's landing in the right place. So perhaps now a good rehearsal, dial that focus of mine, get the feel for it, and we go about again executing the strike of the tee with the leading edge of the golf club. That was a little more like it. Divot after the tee, good strike, good compression, golf ball took off really well. So again, just sticking to the task at hand, realizing that to land the club consistently well is a function of learning what's required, understanding the sequencing of it all, and then drilling the skill of learning that all. Now you should be somewhere close to having the semblance of landing this club correctly. And just as an add-on, if you tend to strike towards the toe of the club, learn the skill of trying to hit the tee with the heel of the club. If you feel like you're landing prematurely all the time, don't move the ball back, move your body forward. If you feel like you're not landing, bend more from your hips than what you're bending from your knees, but make whatever modification is required to start to strike that tee correctly and somewhere around the center of your club face. Now it's time to add power to all of this because we want to hit the ball powerfully. Now remember this whole thing where the pulling out, the gravitational influence, and how me as the controller of this is almost moving in the opposite direction of what the pulling out ball on the end of this foxtail is. Well, the same thing happens in the golf swing. So right back to the start before we add power. Here's the fulcrum. Now, if we could hit the ball 300 yards like that, we would. It would be stupid to try and go bigger because look, this is easily repeatable. And we want to hit the ball repetitively and consistently well. So now if I wanted to accelerate, if I started moving side to side, we've lost the handle on where that club's landing, and you chunking and topping and thinning and shanking and the whole deal. Now watch how we actually going to accelerate this club head. Instead of pulling forward, I'm going to pull upward and a little backward. When I do that, notice I've propelled the club all the way around me, just holding with my fingertips. Again, let's understand this, because when you watch YouTube more and you hear about ground reaction forces, which we'll deal with in a future episode, let's start you here with landing the club properly well. Because look, you could have all the ground reaction force in the world. If you're not landing the club in the right place, it amounts to that much, man. It's a hill of beans. So let's do it properly. I add speed by pulling up and backward. See that? I go forward, up and backward. I start the mechanism with a little forward just to start the movement, but then I pull backward, and you see how I sling the club head around me? We're going to learn that now as we hit a few golf balls, still landing the club in the correct area. All right, so now we're going to use what we just learned and what I illustrated. So when we bend to the golf ball, when we address it, we bend over our hips and we push our booty back a little bit. And notice how I've created some lean from my chest. Remember at the top of the video, I showed you your center of mass and the center of your chest. We're leaning over a little bit now. Now when I wind up, there's a little movement. Now I'm going to lower just a little bit, and from there I push with my legs, and can you see I'm pushing everything up, and that's going to cause this club to accelerate past me. A lot of golfers make the error of winding up well and then they push their pelvis underneath them. Now they've got no more push, so now they have to throw their hands at the golf ball. So you see I wind up, I lower, and now with my legs I push up and I turn. And can you see how there's this upward going on? And if I add some velocity to this, look at how I can actually start to propel this club head pretty well. That mechanism is what we're going to use now to land in the right place, to strike it properly, and to get the maximum out of our energy input. So now we're going to piece this all together. And just remembering always a tip I got from legendary Hall of Famer Gary Player, who said to me whenever he had to strike an iron well, he always focused on a dimple right on the front side of the golf ball. More about that shortly. But remember your center of mass and the middle of your body. When you set up for any full-blooded shot, you should feel like the lower half is always in front of the upper half. If it's the other way around, we become too much of a digger. So as I set up to the golf ball, I'm always going to feel like my belly button is a little closer to the target than the middle of my chest. And when I operate, the middle of my chest is always behind the ball. Anytime I get excessively in front, the path will become crooked. I will push the shots off badly to the right-hand side. More importantly, I'll probably land the club in the wrong area. This is still about rotating and creating angular momentum. So here we are, a little ahead with my lower body, still keeping my eyes on the front dimple, not leaning over there. I'm still dynamic with my posture, and now I'm going to feel low and push up and turn as I'm feeling behind the ball with the middle of my chest. Again, if I move too much this way, I'm likely to land late. If I stay back here, I'm likely to land early. This is all about rotation upward and behind the golf ball. Let's give this a whirl. So I got a clear picture in my mind. I'm always trying to operate behind the ball and a little push out of my legs. Oh yeah. Didn't clip the tee perfectly, but got enough on that to really accelerate that thing out there. It was well struck. It would get to the green, and there was none of that sort of stuff. No heels, no tops, no fats, no thins. Trust me, if you go through these progressions and you drill this every day, every good golfer does, you'll be well on your way to striking the ball in the sweet spot 9 times out of 10. Remember, good ball striking is not about golf swing adjustments. A lot of it is about skill. So do the progressions, improve your skill. I appreciate you watching this. Share it with your friends. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned. We're taking you to your best golf in the future.